You're listening to the #1 podcast for nonprofit leaders, getting your nonprofit fully funded. This is the Fundraising Masterminds podcast. Well, welcome back to another episode of our Fundraising Masterminds podcast. I'm your host, Jason Galasinski, and my co-host, Jim Dempsey.
Hey, Jason.
We are excited to get into another episode, and we're going to do another round of question and answer. But before we get into our first call, if you wouldn't mind just hitting that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, we've got weekly content coming out related to fundraising and development tips. And we would love for you to not miss any of those.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got a caller on the line from Cincinnati, Ohio. Mikey, good to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
Hey,
well, Mikey, you had just reached out to us on Facebook, and you had just texted us a question about a monthly donor. Would you mind going over your situation with us?
And tell us a little bit about you and your position and what your organization does.
Sure. So my wife and I have actually been on staff for about 20 years with the large missionary organization called Cru. We spent 10 years with the campus ministry of that organization, but we've now spent the last 8 to 9 years with a newer branch of ministry called Cru City. And so Cru City, we're about uniquely restoring communities everywhere so that everyone would find their place in God's story. And so that takes place in a number of different networks and avenues, church movements, young professionals, military, neighborhoods, and a few others. And so we've kind of focused and hunkered down the neighbors part of that. Yeah. And so one of the realities of just raising your own funds, whether you are an individual working for a large nonprofit, or even if you're a large nonprofit that has a significant donor, a time comes when you have a large donor that might need to jump ship. And so that can be pretty dramatic at times. And so we had that happen to us recently. We lost a significant donor of about $2,000 a month. And for us, it's 25% of our annual budget for that. And so we also recognize the reality that raising funds is a slow work for good purpose, right? And so, but sometimes there are seasons where the slow work isn't very effective for a family that needs to raise funds, right? Yeah. And so, or even an organization that employs folks that have families that need to raise funds. And so, so that's my question. Like in those seasons when there's significant loss and you need an influx kind of more quickly than usual, what are some potential strategies or methods to pursue an influx of funds, whether that be through monthly giving or special giving? Yeah.
Well, Mikey, just so our audience understands, tell our audience the privilege that every Cru staff member has that kind of led you to this situation.
Yes, the privilege of every Cru staff. The 5,000 plus globally, we raise our own funds. Every single penny. From our salary to our own healthcare to our own workers' compensation. Every dime we raise for ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. So the issue for you is not necessarily for Cru City, but it's more for you individually, correct?
Correct.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Mikey, golly, I wish I could say I only feel your pain because I've actually been there. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been there. I have lost, my wife and I lost a $1,500 a month partner during COVID as it would happen. We had thought we were going to have a little lag time. The person prepared us in January that he was going to retire by the end of the year. And we thought we'd have a little lead time, and unfortunately he didn't make it past May. Had a heart attack just surprisingly, and we didn't even find out until his sister was going through his belongings that she didn't know that he was supporting any Cru staff, and so I know exactly what you're going through. Yeah, Mikey, it's not an easy situation where you're at right now, and you really have to scramble because in a lot of ways that much money that you've lost really means you need to step out of ministry for a while, not getting out of full-time ministry. I don't mean that, but stepping away from your regular duties and responsibilities that you have. And so that would make it difficult, but I can imagine you probably, it's probably hard for you to not do what your responsibilities are with City, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So you kind of have to juggle this balance of, okay, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of energy for me to raise that $2,000, but I can't do it full time because I've got normal responsibilities. And it isn't necessarily that if you requested it, the crew might not allow you to step aside. They probably would if you asked them, but you've got commitments, you've got obligations, you're probably ministering, discipling individuals. Is that pretty accurate to say?
100%.
Yeah. Well, I say that because you're not unlike so many individuals in ministry, whether it be $2,000 a month corporately for the organization or $2,000 individually. It's a big undertaking, and it does take time. It really does to do that. And one of the things you said to me in the question that you sent ahead was, that it takes time, and certainly it takes time because on average, of course, you probably see exactly the way I do. At best, you're probably meeting with someone and getting $100 a month, maybe. You might get $150, maybe $200, but right. You might also be getting $50 a month people. Mm-hmm. So, even at $100 a month, you're going to have to find 20 people willing to give you $100 a month. So it really takes time and effort to do those kinds of things.
Well, and the question he asked is there anything I can do to quickly make up that money, because knowing that it takes that much time. Right,
exactly. Well, Mikey, I would have to say, and I know the training and everything that we get. So crew gets some of the best training out there in MPD and ministry partnership development. So I know there's a lot of things you've heard. I really like to look for opportunities to try and get to as many people as possible. I think you and I know, and you probably would agree with me, that going individually with people, you're going to yield the greatest fruit, the greatest chance. But again, that takes time. So what are the kinds of things that you could do quickly on that? And I have to ask, one of the things that I have seen that's worked well is doing small dinner parties with people where you can get together 3 to 5 couples or more into a room, a current supporter, a current partner asks their friends to come along, invite their other friends, and allows you and your wife to make a presentation about the opportunities that you have. Have you ever tried the small dinner party strategy? And if you did, what were some of the successes you had?
Yeah, we've been on staff for 20 years. We've only done that once.
Okay.
And I think we had, 7 or 8 couples, or at least 7 or 8 units, if you want to use some of the lingo,
right,
that were present. And I would say 2 of them hopped on board and are still on board today. That was probably, 6 years ago we did that.
Right.
But I have not employed that yet. And part of the struggle is too, I'm thinking forward too. I love to do one of those vision dinner in December. Yeah. And so I've got some eggs in that future basket of folks that limits me to what I could do right now. Yep. So again, it's this kind of pickle and dance that you're in of like, how do I approach this? But but that's kind of what we've done in the past and what I hope to do in the future.
Now, Mikey, unpack the Vision Dinner concept for me in that would they give you an opportunity? Normally, the Vision Dinner is established and done for your operational fund. So that would be presented for Crew City. Would they give you an opportunity to also help to fund your own personal support with that?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Now, see, that I think would be a great opportunity because you've really got, it's almost a perfect storm in a lot of ways. You've got a situation where you can get a good number of people in there, and you can, present an opportunity to give. And we're seeing tremendous success with the Vision Dinner strategy for monthly partners. So the dinner doesn't just have to be, one time or single gift, but it can be partners. Now, let me ask you few questions. You mentioned having your vision dinner in December. Is there what's your thinking about having a vision dinner in one of the busiest, most kind of congested months of the year?
Yeah, that's sheerly based on personal calendar / in between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yep.
And then in light of where we are now, already in March or into March, wouldn't be enough time to pull one off. I don't think any sooner than that.
Yeah.
Unless we did wait until April of 24 as another potential option. But again, I'm thinking, where we are and they need to move a little quicker. But that's the only thinking I put into it.
Yeah. Well, my recommendation, if you don't mind me weighing into that, is that's one of the busiest times of the year for other people. So even though that may be a really open time for your calendar, you've really got to look at the calendar of your potential partners. And I'll tell you, I just think about last Christmas for just even our little department team. We had 10 individuals in there. We couldn't find a date that we all agreed on between Thanksgiving and New Year's to do a Christmas party. We ended up having to pick a date before Thanksgiving to do our Christmas party just because everybody was so busy. It's an extremely difficult time of the year to get people's calendars to get together. Everybody's going to Christmas parties. Everybody's got, recitals and kids programs and all kinds of things going on. If you could even push it back a few weeks, if you'd be willing to go on the front end a little sooner, one of the best weekends that I've had of the whole entire year, I always say the two best weekends to do a dinner is the last weekend of April and the weekend right before Thanksgiving. So even if you could move it up just a little bit sooner and try and do it that Friday or Saturday before Thanksgiving, it would make a big difference for you, and I think it would be a great result. On one hand, I'd love to say wait till March or April the following year, but based on your question, it seemed like you need money faster than that. Right. So I'd put that on in Thanksgiving.
And I would also throw out the speed factor as well. You had mentioned that you're not sure you can pull it off fast enough, and I'm not sure if you've been following what Jim and I are up to, but we actually have a new online course called The Perfect Vision Dinner, and it's actually a 5-month, 20-week to be exact, 20-week step-by-step walkthrough where not only do you learn how to do the perfect vision dinner correctly, the way that Jim has been teaching for years, but you also get weekly coaching calls with Jim and I, and we actually, walk you through the process. But our goal is to get you fully funded in the next 20 weeks, which sounds like that's exactly what you need. So that might be a good option for you as well.
Cool.
Yeah. But Mikey, I do feel for you, and I think I would, from my standpoint, if you can do it earlier, I would definitely. Normally, in a perfect world, I generally say you can do it in 20 weeks, and so you do have a good amount of time. I think if you could start recruiting some table hosts before, maybe even in May, and then take the summer if you've got. I don't know if you're going to head on a summer mission or whatever, or just simply stay in the city, but you don't have to consume the time in the summer, and then after Labor Day, just hit the ground running from there. Get the remaining portion of your table hosts and look at trying to do it at the end of November. And I think it'd be well worth it. And what I would probably do, Mike, do you serve with any other staff in the city there in Cincinnati?
We do not.
Okay, so it's just you two. You and your wife. Okay, good. Well, the only reason I was going to say is that you could kind of do a share where some of the money from some of your other people on your team could go, and that money could go to city. But if you're talking about just for your own personal support, I think it's worth it. I really do. Now, remember, just a little tip for you as you're moving ahead. I wouldn't necessarily bill it as a vision dinner for your personal support. I would bill it as a vision dinner for Cruise City. And of course, one of the biggest opportunities out there. I don't necessarily like to use the word needs, but one of the biggest costs of Crew City there in Cincinnati is covering the cost of your salaries. I think too many of our teams make the mistake of pulling out their support from their budget because they raised that individually, and I don't think you need to do that. I think I always tell teams, what's the cost of doing ministry or the cost of doing business in a sense? It's part of that is your salary, so you can't pull that out because I think in my mind it unrealistically paints a picture that you need less money than you do. Now, a lot of our staff don't have to worry about their own personal support, but you do. And so I think I'd position it that way. And I think you're going to get a lot more money that way, frankly.
Yeah,
Jason?
that's helpful.
Yeah, there's something about getting, 150 or 200 or 300 people in a room. And, it's not, hey, come and support me. I need money.
Yep.
For me, that kind of has an icky factor to it. But, we talk about this in our course, right? You have the 3 accelerators of a vision dinner, right? And, people give to mission, vision, and values a lot more than they give to, hey, we need to buy this photocopier or we need to pay for our salary or whatever, right? So really, we walk through all that in our course of how to craft vision, and where is it that we want to go. But then the vision dinner is a perfect place for you to pitch that vision, and you're going to get a lot more people contributing, the day of the event as well as, monthly support, in the long run. So it's a great way to recover that $2,000 a month. Yeah. But that doesn't help him right now.
Well, but Mikey, what Jason, as he's saying is, which I agree 100%, is don't sell the steak. Really, the steak is your salary, sell the sizzle, which is getting you back out into that. It's your vision and what's going to be accomplished. How many people are you reaching? How many people are you discipling? Making a difference that way. So, so that's exciting.
Is there anything Mike can do right now? Like, I'm assuming the heart of your question is, oh boy, we have some personal expenses. We might have to change our lifestyle or something. What's the best way to address, between now and the vision dinner? Is there something he can do to fill that gap?
Well, Mikey, I would look at this as a springboard to that vision dinner. So I think you still need to get out there and start having personal appointments with some people. First of all, the first thing I would do is to try and get upgrades. So individuals that are currently supporting you, would they consider increasing? Number 2, I'd when you're talking with them about increasing, ask them for referrals. If you were in my position, what would you do? Who would you go to? And would you be interested in introducing me to those people so that I could talk with them about what we're doing? So those are important. And then the third thing on there is that we're planning on doing a vision dinner at the end of the year. Would you consider being a table host for us? Would you invite your friends to come to that dinner? And, frankly, Mikey, I think a lot of our teams think that a vision dinner has to be 150, 200, 300 people. I mean, if you just had 60 people in a room, you could still see some great things happen. And, that would be anywhere between 6 and 12 table hosts. And hopefully, just going to some of your top donors in the Cincinnati area, you could pull something like that off in a country club even. So maybe you've got somebody who's a personal supporter who's a member at an exclusive club. I'd look for something like that. So
is that helpful?
That help?
Yeah, that's really good. And I have been knocking on doors already, having some personal appointments, but it's kind of this is slow work of it. I wanted to at least ask the question because I'm sure there are people putting some better thoughts to these than I am. So sometimes it does come down to just hitting the pavement and going to meet with people. And really, there's nothing more cost effective. It's not like direct mail or a vision dinner will cost you money, and so you'll need to look at having some seed money to get things going there. And you still need to do that, but before you do it, try and, meet with those individuals beforehand. So,
Yep, sounds good. Well, Mikey, thanks for this. Thanks for your service, brother. I appreciate you so much being out there serving the Lord on the front lines in Cincinnati. So that just that warms my heart. So thanks for what you're doing.
Jim, would you mind praying for?
Yeah, sure will. Mikey, what's your wife's name?
Catherine.
Catherine, okay. Well, Heavenly Father, I thank you for Mikey and Catherine. I just thank you for their service to you. 20 years on the field, making a difference, winning people to Christ, building them in their faith, and sending them out to win others to Christ. And Lord, I just thank you for their commitment to go anywhere, do anything that you would have them do. And Father, you own a cattle on 1,000 hills, and this $2,000 is absolutely nothing to you. If you wanted it to happen, Mikey could sit on his couch and somebody could knock on the door and say, I want to give $2,000 a month. But in reality, you want us to trust in you, to get out there, to believe in you, to provide for big things. And I believe already by faith that Mikey's money's out there, and I pray that you would just help him find it, but help him find it quickly. But I know it's all in your perfect timing, as he knows as well too. And but I just think it's exciting that that opportunity is out there for him to trust in you. But I pray that it would come even quicker than he would expect. And we thank you. In your holy name we pray, Jesus. Amen. Great. Amen. Thanks, Mikey.
Thanks so much, guys.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Jim, we have another caller on the line. His name is Matt Armstrong. He's calling in from Elgin, Illinois. And actually, I believe he's on the road.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, how are you doing?
Hey, it's good to be on. Thanks for taking the call.
Yeah. What's your question for Jim?
Well, I have so many questions for Jim, but I'd like to.
Well, you guys just go with one.
Jim, we have a number of people that support our ministry regularly, either on an annual basis, semi-annual, or in many cases, monthly basis. And one thing I've noticed is people are enthusiastic about the ministry and they maintain that commitment over time. My question is, when and how would it be appropriate to challenge them to upgrade or to give it a higher level?
Yeah, all right. Okay, all right. Matt, it's important as we look at, I have talked about in the past for our broadcasts, I've talked about there being a mass, middle, and major, and even bigger, our mega donor category. And so, it's important that we do categorize individuals within the particular segment, because everyone needs to be cultivated based on the level of communication and where they're at currently. One of the most important things to do with people is create an individual plan for each person. So there wouldn't be a blanket best time to approach everyone, but it's really important that you really individually look and see, okay, what is a good time to challenge someone? What I would say is I would look at their past giving. If they are fairly consistent, so in other words, if they've been giving the same amount over the last, say, 3 years, the one thing you don't want to do is create a rut. That rut is that grave with the sides kicked out. And so you don't want to get them caught in that rut of just only giving the same amount. What I would say is that you probably, as a whole, you generally don't want to go more than 3 years of somebody giving the same amount before you challenge them. In fact, really you ought to be looking at probably soon after the second gift. Now, what I typically like to do is I like to have a plan specifically for what are, number one, I like to determine what the interests are of the person. So if there's a specific interest that they have in your organization, is that a project or a program that they specifically like, one of the best things to do is to come back with them with something they already like, but at a higher level. So if they've been giving, say, to a particular program or a particular grade or something that you're doing within your efforts or your program with your kids club, I think it's important that you look at, is there something similar? So if they've been giving $3,000 every year, can we challenge them to $5,000, or can we challenge them to $7,500? Now we'll talk about what's an appropriate way to do it, but how often do we want to do it? I would say that's one of your best ways. Now, what I would also look at is there a particular program or project that may be new that's cutting edge? Whenever you want to upgrade someone, it's always best to upgrade them based on something very specific. So just saying, would you move, you've given $3,000 a year for the last 3 years, would you move to $5,000 just because it's a bigger amount? Well, of course you wouldn't do that, but in a sense, that's, if you just ask them an increase to what they're currently giving, that's not going to be enough. I always like to give people a good specific reason to do that, such as we're going to open up a new program or start a new strategy or move to a new location. And I would like you to give specifically to that. So if, opening up your efforts into Kansas City, Missouri, when you've been in St. Louis or something for a while and you want to open up into a new city and it's going to cost $10,000 and they've been in the habit of giving $3,000. Well, now you've got something very specific that you can bring to them.
Now, is this something that you're doing over phone calls, or is this a letter, or what's your recommended way of doing this?
Yeah. Well, I would always, now again, based on the size. Now, if we were talking, like we talked about earlier, we talked about mid-level. Generally 1 to 499, most of the communication with those individuals are going to be via phone call. Okay. So I think you can continue that communication. There's no reason to all of a sudden increase with the level of communication. You don't need to move from a phone call to a visit.
Right.
But if the dollar amount is large enough, if you get some indication that these people have a much higher capacity than you ever expected them, you thought that he was a mid-level manager for Apple Computer. You found out, no, he's actually a regional vice president or something. And it may warrant going in to have an appointment. But generally, if they're the 1 to 499, I think you can handle that via phone call. But when you're talking about somebody who's given $5,000 or more on a fairly regular basis, you probably want to look at having a personal appointment with them. Yeah,
face to face.
Yeah.
A quick follow-up on that, Jim. A little bit of a pivot, but it has to do with asking for the right amount, and also identifying people who could be major donor prospects,
right?
By patterns or behaviors, as opposed to which often contain wild inaccuracies in my experience. So are there things that you look for as you're wanting to upgrade somebody? Maybe it's, in our case, right, we do some vision dinners in different cities. So I may come in and meet somebody one time. So I don't necessarily know if they're that vice president at Apple, but are there patterns in giving that you look for that would tell you this person might be a major donor to us? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's tremendous. And, a lot of, nowadays we can find out so much, Matt, about someone. A simple Zillow search on someone's address can give you quite a bit. Now, again, there's always that millionaire next door that you've got somebody who's extremely wealthy living in a smaller home or community. But, if you generally you get a pretty good idea off of Zillow where they're at. There's other research agencies that you can actually spend time. But, simple searches into Instagram, Facebook, social media kinds of things, you can find out. Sometimes people will post vacations. They'll post, where they work, what they do. So research is so important. But what I thought I heard you say was what, in a sense, triggers that radar that, okay, this is somebody maybe we need to start investigating a little bit more. Currently, the best that until you know more, really, is how much they're giving you. And so you generally will start out with a particular dollar amount. Now, it's pretty easy when someone writes you out a check of $5,000 to $10,000. They would immediately get on your radar. The tougher area is that 1 to 499 area, because I can't tell you, we just had someone, I'll give a great example of this. We had somebody that was on one of our mid-level caseloads, and we didn't realize that they were another part of our organization. They were actually on a major donor category, but we were treating these people as just mid-level partners. Well, they wrote a check to our organization for $17 million, and our branch got $1 million of that. So here we are. We were treating someone like they had the capability of giving 1 to 499, and they actually had the capability of writing a $17 million check. So those don't happen a lot, but they probably happen more than we would think they do, that you've got a diamond in the rough in there. And it's, clearly it's not easy to spot some of those people, or we would have spotted them. But we somebody else struck a chord. But I will tell you this, Matt, and it's without question, there is no way we would have gotten $1 million if we wouldn't have had those calls on a regular basis from our mid-level people, because they could have given to 50 other places within our organization, but they didn't. They gave to us and 2 other arms of our organization. Now, we didn't get the bulk of the money. We only got a portion of that. But I'll tell you, $1 million gift is not anything to turn your nose up on. So it's going to be really important, Matt, that you're going to kind of keep your radar up on any of your people. Your best connections are the people that brought those people in. If you had someone who was a partner at a law firm and they invited another person, well, generally people, for the most part, associate with people of the same socioeconomic status. So if I have an attorney who is a table host at your St. Louis dinner, and he invites someone, and maybe that person gave $500 or even $1,000. Well, I think it still would be important maybe for you to do kind of a check-in with the table host to say, what can you tell me about some of these people? Well, yeah, so-and-so, Mr. and Mrs. Smith who came, they're partners with me in the law firm. Well, maybe if it's a prestigious firm, well, then that tells me right off that these people have some potential. So maybe I ought to be considering doing some further investigation. And of course, nowadays, further investigation, you can really get a lot of information from people. But you just have to know who to target before you can get that information. Does that help?
Very much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Matt, thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah.
We appreciate you a lot, and just keep up the good work. I'm sure you're doing great work for the Lord, and just keep that up.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. As you were talking to Matt about that, I was thinking about, people in the same social status as others. And Matt had mentioned that he done some vision dinners.
Right.
And, one of the things about vision dinners that we love is using table hosts to invite guests.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what I heard you kind of say in a way was, the key to understanding, these people that are coming in are the connections that they have. So
who brought them in?
If you know that someone came to your dinner,
right,
and they came through this person, and you have a relationship with that person, perhaps, calling that individual, calling the table host, having discussions, and just probing and getting information about every person that comes to their dinner, as a way of understanding people more.
Well, I think it's a great idea. And of course, we want to make sure that we preserve the confidentiality. I would never call a table host and say, hey, Fred Jones gave us $1,000 or Fred Jones gave us $10,000.
No, and I was thinking more like, hey, tell me a little bit more about Fred Jones.
You're right.
And, where does he work and what kind of work does he do?
No, that's where I was going. No, I'm with you completely.
Right.
But I would say, hey, tell me. I want to get to know and essentially these people are now new friends of ours.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about them. I'd love to know more in detail. So no, I'm with you 100%.
Right.
I think that's a valuable way to go.
And I like your idea of looking them up on Zillow or whatever. That gives you kind of an idea.
Oh yeah.
But it feels kind of stocky too. At the same time,
sadly, Jason. I'm preaching to the choir here. I know, but it it's scary what's out there on us. Everything from our tax returns to our investments and what nonprofit organizations we give to, where we go to church, all those things. There's so much out there that is just public domain. And so, yeah.
Well, Matt mentioned, vision dinners, and it sounds like he had done a few in a few different locations.
Which is a big step to move outside your normal venue.
Yeah. And, if you've been on this program or been watching our program for any length of time, you'll know that Jim and I are very big components of vision dinners. It is probably one of our number one growth strategy tools that we use to expand nonprofits into new partners, right? And we talk a lot about fundraising versus fundraising and how the vision dinner is really the perfect avenue to create those long-term partners, right? Rather than having short-term bursts of money. Now, everyone loves short-term bursts of money. We were on a call earlier. Mikey was asking a question essentially of like, how do I get cash now?
Big, easy, fast.
And so many nonprofits, react that way. Something happens and it's like, oh no, we need to make up the difference. What can we do right now? And unfortunately, there's never a great solution for right now. Everything in development is long term.
It's funny. Everybody has a long term view until all of a sudden there's an immediate need, and then all of a sudden you
and it's easy to let an emergency justify a change in plan.
That's right.
Right. Like, okay, I'm fine having a development plan until COVID hit.
Right.
And then it's like, well, throw out the development plan.
Right.
It's like, well, don't throw out the development plan. Just maybe you could shift your strategy.
You can modify it.
You can modify. But the idea of we're going to focus on building long-term relationships when everything is going well.
Right.
But when things are bad, we're going to throw out the long-term relationships. It's actually the opposite, right? You actually want to be focusing more on building relationships when things aren't well.
Yeah. Well, I always say that I think our partners find out whether we really are friends and who their real friends are when things get tough. Because it's sad to say, but there are a lot of nonprofits who do start calling their people less when there's time. And they even justify it by, well, they're going through some tough times, so I shouldn't be calling them and bugging them. Actually, that is probably the time to call, not to ask for money, but maybe to say, can we be praying for you for something? Is there something that we can come alongside and help you with? You've helped us for a lot over the years.
Yeah. How can we help you? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, if you are interested in learning more about the Perfect Vision Dinner, you are in the right place, because Jim and I have put together a 20-week course, and we do one in the spring that leads a class up to the fall, and we do one in the fall that leads the class up into the spring. And the goal is to, teach the basic development principles. We talk about development basics, which includes a lot of practical biblical solutions and the mindset that you need to have with solid development principles.
We talk about the win, keep, and lift, like I talked about earlier with Matt.
Yeah, and then we go through basically the remainder of 20 weeks of step-by-step what you need to do practically. This is not theory. This isn't like you should watch these videos and then, good luck.
Yeah, like reading a textbook and nothing else.
No. It's not like that at all. We actually have a series of videos that we want you to watch for a specific week. And then we have a Zoom call, and we get everyone on the call, and we talk about, what you learned, if you have any questions, so it's what we refer to as a live course.
Jason, do we call this the Perfect Vision Dinner because we're perfect and our model is perfect?
Well, some people think that, they think that, these guys, think that they're perfect. And that's not true. We are not perfect people at all, but we call it the Perfect Vision Dinner because there is a coaching element involved in this course. And what we do is we get on with you, we find out what is going on with your ministry, and we craft the dinner,
tailor it and structure it.
That for you. And so it's perfect for you, and that's exactly why we call it the Perfect Vision Dinner. So all that to say, we're coming up to May 8th pretty soon. I don't know when this broadcast will be aired, but if it's anytime before the class starts, a lot of times we do early bird discounts. So you could head over to our website, fundraisingmasterminds.com, see if the early bird discount is still available to you. I know sometimes we give off pretty significant discounts. So, but it's a great course. If you really thinking about, I really need to do a vision dinner, but I just have no idea where to start, or it feels overwhelming, it's really geared towards people who haven't really done it before. But at the same time, if you've been doing vision dinners for 10 years, you're going to learn a ton as well, because we go through all the misconceptions and all the reasons why certain things work and don't work. And so it's really, really a great tool. And like I said before, it's our number one growth strategy for building new relationships. So if you're a nonprofit and you are looking to grow, I don't know any nonprofit that doesn't want to grow, then you should be interested in the Perfect Vision Dinner course, not just because, we're sitting here talking about it, but if some of the world's largest organizations only use vision dinners to grow millions of dollars of revenue,
car washes, not so cookies,
then it might be worth considering.
Absolutely. And we saw it with Matt. I mean, we saw that Matt really saw it as a springboard to introduce new causes to his current donors and also move them up to the next level.
Well, Jim, this has been good. I'm really glad we were able to talk with Mickey and Matt today. And again, if you have any questions for us, feel free to write it in the comments, because we might be doing another Q&A very soon. And we would love to hear from you and love to hear and answer your questions in a future episode. And before we let you go, if you wouldn't mind just subscribing to our YouTube channel, you can find us at Fundraising Masterminds Podcast on YouTube. And if you want to listen to us on the go, you can look us up on Apple Music and Spotify. Again, Fundraising Masterminds. And thanks again for joining us on this episode of Fundraising Masterminds. We hope that you learned a lot, and we'll see you in the next one.
Take care.